and welcome to Our People, the podcast where we give space for Holdeman stories. We focus on hope, healing, and inspiration. Connection, consciousness, and love are the driving motivations for this project. Remember to have grace for those who have chosen to speak out and share their experience. Please enjoy the story you will hear today.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda with Our People's Podcast, and today I have Dennis Goossen with me, and he is going to tell us a story about his life. Dennis, I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dennis Goossen, and I am delighted to be talking to everybody today. So I'll start with some background, where I grew up and what my childhood was like, and that sort of thing, and we'll go on from there, and hopefully Amanda will keep me on the track. So I grew up in Saskatchewan, in Norquay, Saskatchewan, or the North Star congregation, if you look it up in the yearbook. I was originally born in Abbotsford, actually, but I grew up on a farm there in Saskatchewan. I would say my childhood is pretty happy. I've described it now to some of my friends now that it was idyllic. Farm boy, raised on a farm, happy home, happy life, really quite happy. I don't really have a lot of complaints about my childhood. I was baptized when I was 12 years old there in that church. Once again, fairly normal conversion experience in baptism, some kind of hellfire sermon. I wanted to be baptized. I never did not want to be baptized. And so I was, gave my heart to God and committed to serving God at that point, and was quite excited to join the church, join the Holdeman church. I did have some rough patches going in my youth years. Let's see, how do I describe this? I think so I've always been a thinker. And so as I got a little bit older and started to think through the doctrines, what the ministers were preaching, what I was learning, what I was reading, I was a bookworm. Combining that with your typical teenage rebellion, I found in that some inconsistencies that were very convenient because I didn't want to live a Christian life anymore. So since my only exposure to Christian living was the Holdeman Church, and that was inconsistent, I didn't have to follow that anymore. So I called myself an atheist and kind of teenage angst type person for a couple years, like between the ages of 16 and 18, something down that line. Much to my parents' sorrow and chagrin and everybody else. Let's see. Then around the age of 18, I really had a major come to Jesus experience, where the brief details were that my sister and one of our cousins, a female cousin, found out what my beliefs were, and they wept. They were sad. They were crying. They were really kind of desperate and afraid for me, and to appease them, that's what you do when females cry. To appease them, I said, okay, fine, I'll give it one more chance. And so they left the room, and I went to my bedroom. It was late evening, and I knelt down and prayed. I said, God, I'll give it one more chance. If you're real, if you've got a plan for me, if you've got a life for me, whatever, let me know. And I felt the darkest, emptiest, blackest void you could ever imagine. And that scared me. I spent the next like 5 hours kneeling beside my bed, crying and yelling and like, God, don't withhold yourself from me. Finally, he broke through in a very still, quiet way, and I have never looked back since. That's not an experience I ever want to experience again, that separation from God. So then the story continues. After that, I turned around, and I'm always an all-in kind of guy. So I went through a bit of a period of absolute church enthusiast, to the point of like, I wasn't breaking any rules. I wasn't breaking any conference decisions. I wasn't breaking anything because I'm an all-in kind of guy. And if this is what it is, then this is what it is. I spent a couple of years teaching school because of my bookishness, really enjoyed that. But then I ended up leaving that and started taking my accounting training. I'm a CPA now, and that's what I do. I do taxes and auditing and such for a living. But really, that's the least exciting part of my life. After teaching school and while I was in university for my accounting degree, I met my dear wife Audrey from Cimarron, Kansas, and we got married. The short story there is that I met her on Saturday and decided to marry her on Tuesday. It took her till Thursday to come around. And then it took us a couple months to get all the logistics figured out and all that, and then we got married. So that was good.
How dare it take so many days?
Well, I like the story because it always gets a good reaction. Especially awesome. Now that I get to, tell it to people that are used to dating for a couple years, and I'm like, well, let me tell you my story.
Right? That's awesome.
Yeah, and they're all pretty intrigued by that. So yeah, we got married, and let's see, some point in there we moved to Grandview, Manitoba, where I had an accounting office in Grandview, Manitoba. And that's really where the bulk of my story happened. We were there for 10 years, I think. So I can't point to any specific time where my thinking shifted, but more of just a continual, always studying, always reading, always wanting to learn more. I got involved with other brethren, members of the church, through various channels, first of all by email, and then on our phones with WhatsApp and Telegram, and we got into Bible studying the Bible, studying various things, discussing a lot of things. At a certain point, we had organized, so this was maybe about the infamous 40, maybe around 40 men had been on a Telegram chat, and one of the men was trying to lead us through a Bible study. It was getting a little too much for him, and so he asked me to take it over, and I took it over, and I led the men through this Bible study through Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology. If you ever want to buy that book, it's about 4 inches thick and costs about $80. So it's and I'll be happy to lead anybody that wants to through that Bible study. I love it.
Systematic
Theology by Wayne Grudem. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's got a good way of going through getting through everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so we were doing this, going through this systematic theology, and slowly growing. More men were jumping on. Some would fall off the study, but more were joining than were falling off. And we would try to stay on topic, but we kept on kind of circling around to other topics of concern or topics that we were dealing with during the day, during our lives. So we took that to a different chat group. We said, okay, the personal stuff, the social stuff, we'll go discuss that over there, well, where our Bible study is here. On the personal side, then we just simply began to circle around concerns with our church, with some of our leadership, with some of our doctrines. And that was a concern to us. But for the most part, we were all, we were serious-minded men. And it was all men, I apologize. But we were serious-minded. I mean, there's a reason why we were here. We were not shooting the breeze. We were not talking about barbecued meat or pickup trucks. We were talking about the Bible. And we were actually really getting into like pretty deep technical stuff. So that it was serious-minded men. As these concerns began popping up, somebody said, we need to do something with this. We need to just, this thing or this topic or the concern is going to keep on festering until we do something with it. So we decided to have a day of prayer. That was our first step, was a day of prayer. And we actually did it communally on the Telegram app. Everyone shared a prayer. And it was really an emotional day. Like, we prayed for ourselves, for our wives, for our families, for our church, for our leaders, for the concerns that we had, for direction, like how are we going to go forward here? And when that day of prayer was done, the thought that came out of it was to write a letter. Well, actually what happened was I pointed out at the end of the day or the next day, I said, well, here's, this is actually in our conference decision book, or in the conference decision book of the Holdemans. One of the very first conferences, it says something like this, that if any brother perceives anything different from the body, he shall lay it before the body. Okay, we said, we'll do that. We perceive something different from the body, so we'll lay it before the body. And that's what we did. So we probably spent, I would say, probably 6 months. I drafted up this letter, and we worked on that. We tweaking it, massaging it, editing it, praying over it. We gave draft copies to multiple ministers for their comment on it, to see what they would say, what they would recommend, and so forth. And when it was all done, we decided, here's what we're doing. We are each going to individually take this to our minister, because we believed in, well, whether or not we believed in it, we were determined we were going to do this by the book. We were going to do this by the book, because this was something that we didn't want any, well, we knew that we were going to be in the line of fire. But like the scripture says, if anyone's going to accuse you of anything, don't let it be anything that you did wrong. Let people accuse you of doing something right, not wrong. So we were going to do everything squeaky clean, and that's what we did. We had appointments with our ministers. We laid this thing to them, and like I did with my minister, I said, okay, here's my concern. This is a concern for you and for our congregation and for our church at large. And I slid it across the desk to him, and I said, now it's not my concern anymore. Now it's your concern. I read it to him, explained it to him, and then I slid it across the desk to him, and I said, okay, it's yours now. Poor guy.
Right. Oh my!
He didn't know what to do with that.
Which congregation were you living at this point?
Grandview, Manitoba. This was
Okay.
Minister Rodney Fraze.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the only minister there. Okay, so that started really a domino effect of chunk of us getting excommunicated. A number of people, just whatever kind of circumstances they were in, they were able to stay in the church. Some of them chose not to stay in the church. One or two of them recanted. It's just a whole kind of combination of reactions. Some of them sort of were ready to leave anyways, and so they kind of gave it to their minister and says, we're gone, we're done, but this is, here's something for you to look at.
Okay, so some of them used it almost as a farewell letter.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So some used it as a farewell letter. Some used it as, this is our concern, but I'm committed to stay and try to work with the church and fix the church and whatever. And some of them said, well, I was involved, but now I regret my involvement and I don't really see things that way anymore. Just a few, only 2 or 3 really went that direction. So, so that's what that was. So my personal story then, that resulted in probably, so that was 6 months of writing this thing. That was another 6 months then of me starting this interminable process of staff visits and and discussions and visits and one-on-ones and phone calls and whatever. And I always consistently told them, I don't want to leave. I was never ashamed to be a Mennonite. As far as the lifestyle goes, I'm pretty happy with the lifestyle. I love you people. I'm here. I'm here as long as you'll have me. That's what I told them. I'm here as long as you'll have me. I'm here. And I'll keep working as long as you want me to work here with you. But it always kept circling around to this letter. And the proof was, the proving was, this is a false spirit. And so can I accept that this was a false spirit? And I would say, well, no, I can't accept that this was a false spirit. First of all, I don't really understand spirits that way anyways. And secondly, you weren't there when we were praying over this thing. You don't know the sincerity of our hearts and the love that we have for you. Well, they did know that. I actually asked the minister later, I says, have you ever felt anything except love from me? Because I want to know. And he said, no, I've never felt anything except love. So that was good.
Okay, but yet, so he had never felt anything but love from you, but the spirit, but the letter had been written in a false spirit. So. Yeah,
that doesn't. Welcome to the world of Holdeman thinking. There's always contradictions, and that is absolutely true. The letter was from a false spirit. We were all deceived, and we should just accept that our superiors are telling us that we were deceived. In fact, at some point, the staff told me that, well, the committee has proven it to be false. The Conference Counseling Committee and the Historical and Doctrinal Proving Committee, which together makes up about 20 men, 15, 20 men. And I said, well, we've got a group of 40 men that proved it was right. So which one do I believe? And they asked me to submit to my brethren. And I said, well, yeah, I am. I've got 40 men telling me to hang on to this thing. So I'm submitting to them. So, ultimately it circled back to that. And I really tried hard. And I, like a favorite aunt of mine told me, she says, you need to grovel. And I said, I'm groveling. I'm groveling about as hard as I know how to grovel here.
Oh my goodness.
And, but it ultimately came to, I could not say that, yes, this thing is from the devil. I just couldn't say that. That was dishonest. And so finally, I was on repentance for a while, and then finally they came and said, well, we're just going to have to excommunicate you.
Okay. So then beside those, like 2 or 3 that, recanted.
Sure.
What happened to everybody else? Then did they have to leave or get expelled as well?
No. so all the different groups, I mean, so some of them used it as a farewell letter.
Mhm.
Some of them were in my camp. They refused to recant and they got expelled. Some were in a camp where they refused to recant and they're still in the church today
Okay.
because their ministers were whatever. They're just the right combination of personality plus minister plus circumstances. They managed to get by with it. I know some of them were on repentance for quite a while. You know, we all stayed in touch and we prayed for each other, and we worked on these things together. I'm going to turn my heater on. It's cold in my basement.
Oh, that's
I hope the
awesome.
audio is okay with that on. If it bothers, I'll turn it back off.
I can't hear anything. Nothing changed.
Good. Okay. Yes. So yeah, I was going to just on a little side trip to the us brethren. We are still in contact with each other on an ongoing basis.
Even the 2 and 3?
No,
They had
not because we
recanting
kicked
too.
them out, but they recused themselves.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, they were, yes, I can believe that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. One of them's a minister today, and so we make comments about his sermons every now and then. But
Oh, bless his heart.
absolutely right.
That was his crowning jewel for recanting. He got put into the
I
ministry.
suppose something down that line. I don't know.
Ouch. That hurts. Okay. You know
But
what? I have never envied. I don't think I've never envied the staff. I've never wanted to be one. I don't think that's a neat position. I think it is the worst possible life sentence anybody could get.
oh, I would know. I would love it. I'd love to be a minister. I preach all the time.
Oh, bless your heart.
But I wouldn't last in the Holdeman church, I'm afraid, because I just wouldn't work.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about the Holdeman Church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a friend. You might know them then, since you grew up in Canada, from Swan River. You know anybody from Swan River?
Yeah. Yeah. Our congregation was right neighboring them.
Okay, well then you're gonna know her. Lavon. Dennis, her dad, Dennis, is the minister of Barkman.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
Lavon,
Dennis and Barkman was involved in my whole situation.
Was he loving? Because I love him.
He was lovingly wrong.
I love that too. Okay.
Yeah.
So Lavon and I, we hit it off immediately when we had met each other years and years ago. Anyways, so she married a boy from my congregation there in West Point, and Brad Weedle, God bless them. They got put in. I think she was 23 years old when they got put in. Oh my goodness. She bawled from the time she knew it was coming to, the whole ordination service. She bawled and didn't even hide it, bawled. She couldn't. She just couldn't. She grieved, and I don't blame her. But anyways.
Well, the scrutiny. The scrutiny and the pressure and the questions and exposure and being forced to submit and all that we went through, the staff members that have 10 times of that. They get nailed by each other all the time. Right. So that's not an easy life for them at all.
Nope. No, I would not like that. Okay.
Okay.
So then, so you guys, so they said, we're going to have to expel you. And you said, okay, no problem. And then what happened?
So I went to my group of men and I said, this is what's happening. And this is happening tonight. And ain't no way I'm going to church. And all 40 of them said, yes, you are. So I was like, no, I'm not. And they said, yes, you are. So it had been a little while since we'd had a members meeting. And so I told the staff, I said, I haven't had a chance to share my heart with the congregation for a while, quite a while. I'd like to share my heart with the congregation. They dragged around on that. And finally they said, yeah, okay. So we went to the meeting, and they said, well, here's Dennis. And We just feel like the Spirit's telling us that he needs to be excommunicated, and we'd like to give him a chance to speak first. So I stood up and I said, just want to let you know, I love you all. I've always loved you all. I don't hold anything against anybody, and all I can do is stand on Jesus crucified for my sins, and that's what I'm doing. I
Okay.
sat down. Everyone else stood up to support the excommunication, and we stood up and walked out.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm sure it felt good to be able to at least, speak your last truth.
Yeah, it did. And I was still, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the whole thing. And well, in a way, I was also quite determined that this whole thing about, if they're going to criticize me, they're going to criticize me for doing things right. Not for, I wasn't going to throw a temper. I wasn't going to kick the bench over. I wasn't going to, whatever, go out drinking afterwards, or
right.
Like, I felt this kind of heavily on my shoulders, even, of representing this letter, because the typical accusation is that when you leave the church, your life goes downhill.
Right. Yes.
That's the whole thing. And so I've felt that. I've felt that, and so I feel like I have I have followers. I have people that are watching.
You kept your life together though pretty well?
Yes, I believe we do.
Like somebody that was, on the podcast team said, where are all these sex rock and roll parties I was supposed to be going to? I never got one invite.
I never got invited to them, right?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so then what? Because eventually you moved.
Yeah, so it was actually quite shortly after that. We were in the process, and in fact, that's a little bit why they accelerated our excommunication, because we said we were going to move.
Okay.
And so they said, well, we better get this done before you leave then.
Right.
We moved to North Phoenix, Anthem, Arizona, the little town of Anthem, Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah,
Why?
just up on the north end.
Yeah.
There were a couple other of our 40 men in Anthem and in Chino Valley. And so we felt like that's where we could be together with our people. We even had an idea at the back of our mind that maybe we would end up worshiping together, all of us. We could support one another, that did work sort of for a while. But we were all in quite different places in our journey. And we were also quite spread out.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so we did end up going. So we attended at Chino Valley for a year, and the whole Chino Valley thing blew up while we were there. So we helped with that.
Oh, great.
And as a matter of fact, so we ended up having some pretty significant meetings with the ministers that were coming, the non-resident ministers and stuff like that. Like probably 8 of us men or 10 of us men in a room with those ministers, just negotiating things and like telling them like, this is how we believe, and this is what we've come to, and this is what we studied. So prior to this, we were all kind of separated. So us moving down to Arizona helped collect all of us, at least there in that group.
Okay.
Yeah. And the upshot of that was with the local ministers and revival staff, they basically just concluded this was all from the devil. We just need to deal with this, and they started excommunicating people right, left, and center.
Wow.
I think we dropped the congregational population in half.
Wow. Okay.
But then they sent the conference counseling committee. So 2 of us met with the conference counseling committee, for those that don't know, those are the big guns. Those are the 7 ministers, 7 senior ministers that go around and deal with other ministers. That's really what their job is to go around and deal with, ministers that are theoretically the ministers that are abusing their power or are teaching false doctrine or are hurting people or whatever, but they also are kind of watchdogs for doctrine and theology and making sure everyone stays on the right track. Anyway, they came to...
No, I'm sorry. You
Yeah,
mean
go for it.
making sure everybody stays on the Holdeman track?
Yes, correct. Stays on the Holdeman track, toes the line, and they
Right.
protect the system. Yeah.
Okay.
They're the last line of defense, like one of them said.
Right. Yes. After that, it's just all over.
That's right. So, okay, yeah. So 2 of us ended up meeting with the conference counseling committee. The 2 of us in the room with these 7, well, not all 7, but 5 leading ministers, and once again negotiating on this thing. And we talked about a bunch of different things. I mean, they talked about possibly they would change the wording of the reacceptance. Like, would we be could we get reaccepted if we if they would change this, if they would remove the thing about being wrongfully excommunicated, would that work? And they ended up not agreeing to that anyways, but they discussed it among themselves with us in the room. Would this work? Or could we agree that maybe it was rightfully excommunicated because by their doctrine it was correct? And yeah, okay, I could acknowledge that. The end result was, we're not lost, we're not condemned to hell, but there's no path for us back into the church. Not with that not holding the position we held. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
I told them, I said, I'm still ready to join. And I said, so my position now is basically, I'll accept you as you are once you accept me as I am. That's where we're at now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it sounds like no hard feelings.
I'm offended. I'm hurt. I'll like, there's a lot of pain with being excommunicated. There's a lot of pain with dealing with family and dealing with separation and dealing with all those little things that crop up. And we can talk about how I dealt with a lot of that stuff too, as we go along. I'll maybe finish going through the whole timeline first.
Okay, wait. Actually, let's pause for a minute.
Sure, go for it.
Because you said that there is a lot of pain with being expelled. There is. And so it is very fascinating to me. And so let's talk about that for just a minute. But those people that, because I've had friends that have come, they're like, okay, they're leaving the church for whatever reason. And these are adults. Okay. Yeah. And I remember warning one, I said, okay, be ready, because it's going to change your relationships. And she's like, Amanda, she says, we're adults. Maybe that was how it was back when we were kids, but it's not that way anymore. And I'm like, okay, I hope I'm wrong. You're right. Go on. Oh, she pulled onto the schoolyard to pick her kids up that first Monday after being, making it public she was leaving. And I mean, she was horrified at the reception she got and how they were just so scared for her soul and everything else. Yeah. She's like, it's me. Nothing has changed. Like, whatever it's going to change. It is not, you cannot make this step. You cannot take that step and leave because you do not believe their doctrines without getting that avoidance put in there, and it changes. But there is no freedom that you will find as long as you believe the way you believe and are pretty much putting these gags on yourself, so to speak. Anyways, but so yes, I wanted to take a moment and I wanted to say, absolutely, it is painful leaving. But finally, you come to that decision, which is more painful, staying or going. And then you have to be true to your convictions and to what you're being asked, of. So, okay. Sorry.
Well, we can talk. I'll talk about my experience then some. So for us, our experience is a little bit different than others because we never chose to leave. We fought tooth and nail to stay for more than a year. Yeah. Okay. So it was a loss for us, in the sense of losing our identity, losing our relationships, losing our family, and so forth.
Sort of against your will is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
Well, none of us choose, even if we choose to leave the church, like where you're saying you chose to stay, you wanted to stay, and those of us chose to leave, we still all get the same avoidance. It's still all the same pain. It just might be how maybe we look at it differently, things like that. But believe me, we all go through the same hurt of it all. So continue on.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy, there was something I was going to mention just exactly on that, but it'll come to me. So you mentioned the fear that others have for us. That was a hard thing for us to wrap our mind around, because it's like simultaneously we're enjoying life and living in freedom. And I mean, we found a local church and we were loving it, and we were serving there. I was a deacon there, and we would get these, these messages about people that were just, we're so sad for you and we're praying for you. And we were like, how do I respond to this? I mean, when people say they're praying for me, I just say thanks. I mean, I need all the prayers I can get. I absolutely bring it on. Yep. I need it.
Yep.
When people say, I wish that you could be part of us, I say, I do too. I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Let's do this.
Yes.
So that's sort of the way I approach it. The just the logistics of being together and with the Holdemans. What we've done when we go to people's places for meals, I will text them beforehand and say, this is how we want to do it.
Which is
and
how?
Which is how our family sits together. Yeah, I want to know. Our family sits together. That's just it.
Okay.
My wife and me and our children will sit at a table. Okay. Don't just put my wife and I. Actually, my wife is still a member. They've just never got around to taking care of her, because I won't let the staff talk to her.
Okay.
Well, actually, sorry, I should back up. We've requested now to transfer her membership from Chino Valley to where we are worshiping here in Valley View Bible Church in Cimarron. So I suspect that'll happen at some point. But
so they'll have to expel you to be able to make that transfer.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Which we knew, and we did that intentionally.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So that's what we've done, is we've just like, okay, here's what we're thankful that you're inviting us to your house. Here's how we prefer that things are kept.
Okay.
And everybody's respectful. In fact, so we find, well, this is just the way we address it and we look at it. But these people have a sincere conviction that this is how they have to be. They themselves would feel guilty and bad and scared for themselves if they didn't. So kind of like if we are visiting our Muslim friends, I'll take off my shoes to walk into their mosque. I'll cover my head if I'm around Jews and go into the synagogue with them. Same way with them. I won't, we'll draw our boundaries, but we'll try to meet people halfway wherever we can.
Correct.
One of the most awkward things is when we don't have a chance to prepare ahead of time and you're with a bunch of Mennonites and half of them will shake your hand and the other half won't, and you never know which half will and which half won't.
Right.
So that's fun.
Yes.
It's not fun. I hate social awkwardness.
Yes.
But yeah, that's how we've addressed that. Our families are, well, so my wife's family is all part of this 40-man group, or most of them are. So that's not really an issue.
Well, lucky you.
What?
Lucky or her.
Yeah, exactly. On my side, I've always sort of been the spiritual leader of our family, like my siblings and my parents and so on. And so it really threw them for a loop when I did this, although they all said, we're not surprised that you're being excommunicated. And I'm like, well, there you go. And I sort of watched this happen. Like for a year or two, they tried to deal with things in the family, and like my parents are getting older, and they try to deal with things without me. And within a year, things just sort of started drifting back to asking me what to do with stuff again. So they've sort of accepted things where it's at.
That's good. That's nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the end of my story. Well, we ended up, okay, so we did end up moving. Okay,
Because
well.
You're still in Anthem.
Where did I drop? Okay, yeah, sorry, we're in Anthem. We have been, so our children, we've been fostering, we've fostered kids for years and years and years in Canada, and then again in Arizona. We ended up adopting, over the space of 4 years, we ended up adopting the last 4 children that we fostered.
Wow. Are they siblings?
The oldest 2 are siblings. The younger 2 are, so we have girl and boy, those 2 are siblings. Then we have 2 little girls that are not siblings.
Okay.
Yeah, so 10, 7, 4, and 3 they are now.
Wow. Okay.
They keep us hopping.
Yes, they do.
They are a lot of fun. And they're the family circus is what they are.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyways, while we were in Anthem, we worshiped together with a few of the other brethren in-house church for quite a while. Then we had to, that had to peter out. There was, one of the other families had health issues. One of the other families traveled quite a bit. We had a bunch of young kids. So we all felt like it would be better for us to find something else. We attended a local Church of Christ, actually. Okay, here's interesting. What I did to figure out where we were going to worship is I made a spreadsheet, because that's how I live.
Okay.
By spreadsheet. I made a spreadsheet of all the local churches and all of their doctrines and worship styles, and started analyzing. And then we started attending churches.
Okay.
And after about 4 churches or 5, I realized that none of them are going to believe the same way I am. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Because nobody ever does. No church ever, whatever.
Right.
And so then I looked in the Bible, and it said that we'll know who are followers of Jesus by their love. So we went back to those 4 that we'd gone to, and we said, well, where was the most love? And we went to that one.
Very good.
Which was a Church of Christ. It was a, if anyone is familiar with Churches of Christ, there is a extremely legalistic, cultish section of them. And then there's the whole spectrum all the way to like fully progressive, quote unquote, woke Churches of Christ. So a lot of people have heard about the cultish legalistic side, and they don't know about the whole, every congregation is autonomous. They're independent. So they all sort of form their own way.
So what was yours?
It was conservative, but not legalistic.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of the older ones were a little bit legalistic. But
did you join them or not?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, so we attended for a year, and then I wanted to serve. I wanted to teach, I wanted to serve, I wanted to help, and so we asked about membership. And I'm, unlike others, and maybe this is just, I've actually had this debate a few times. I don't get, actually I do, I get, but I don't agree with the reluctance to be a member of a church.
Okay.
For those of us that have left and are still Christian. Okay. I know some people are very reluctant, and so I hope I said that right. I understand it, but I don't agree with it. And I still didn't say that right, because I've got nothing against the people that choose not to be members. But for us, it was important that we belonged.
Okay. Yes.
There.
Yes.
Maybe I said that right.
That you did. So I'm assuming that, if I'm not mistaken, Church
Mm-hmm.
Christ, you had to get baptized by immersion.
Ah, yes.
Yes.
You would like that story.
Pardon?
I said you would like that story.
Okay, well, tell me.
Yeah. Yes. So like I said, they're not the legalistic bunch. So we talked with the elders, and I said, we want to be members. Well, they knew our testimony already. We'd been in and out with them, and my wife and I, neither of us are closed books. They knew our entire story after about the 5th Sunday there.
Okay.
Well, they said, okay, have you been baptized? I said, yep, sure have been. I was 12 years old. I got water poured on my head. And they said, okay, we'll think about it. And they came back and they said, we're fine with it. There's 3 or 4 old ladies over there that like to sit on that bench right there. They might not be fine with it. I told them when Paul took Timothy to Jerusalem, the Jerusalem people had trouble with him, and he got himself circumcised just to please those people in Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
If he can do that, I can take a bath.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got baptized by immersion.
Yep. Okay. Very good.
One of the elders baptized me, and then I baptized my wife, and we carried on.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was good. Like I said, I was a deacon there. We were there for 3 years, I think. We really loved it. I preached occasionally, served, and this was North Phoenix, and there's lots of opportunities to serve, volunteer in the city, and whatever. I'm a go-getter, so that's I go and get it. Yeah.
You went and got it.
I went and got it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. The aforementioned children that we adopted, one of their birth families found out where we lived and started showing up on our yard.
Yikes.
And he was the reason why they had been removed from the home in the first place.
Okay.
So we needed to leave fairly quickly. And we had been thinking about getting closer to my wife's family anyways.
Okay.
So we ended up in Cimarron.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Very good.
that's how it was kind of a fast thing. It was like 2 or 3 months and we were out of there.
Okay.
It was either that or call the police and start working that way. And it's like, I don't know if we're ever really going to sleep very easy.
Right.
And
then the trauma that the child would have to, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, dealing with the children and eventually having to explain to the children what's going on. And
I think you made a very good decision.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I actually was born in Arizona. And
there you go.
Yeah. So Al Mirage Church would have been, where I went to school to begin with and all that. And then as an adult, I moved back to Arizona, lived downtown Phoenix and just back there in Al Mirage, Surprise area kind of and stuff. So just kind of all over, spent quite a few years there. So yes, I know all of that anthem and all. I love that.
We loved it. It was beautiful. It was a lot of fun. There's lots of things to do in the city. We loved it, but we're pretty happy where we are too.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. Night and day difference, but that's actually why I moved out, because I realized that I knew I didn't want to live forever there. And so, the natural progression, I was single at the time, is that if you're going to get, look for love, then you might want to move to where you actually want to be before you start looking for love, because you don't want to end up.
Otherwise, you're going to settle down somewhere that,
Exactly. So I left. But okay. So now you're in Cimarron.
Yeah. So then we moved to Cimarron.
For how many years?
It's been 1.5 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's fairly recently.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So we did sort of the same thing. I didn't do the spreadsheet, but off the top of our head, we knew that there was a few churches in town, and we sort of knew where we might feel comfortable, where we wouldn't. So for us, it's been important. Obviously, we're still committed Christians. And it's been important for us to attend a church where we feel comfortable. The worship style is something that we're happy with, that we like, and that the doctrines aren't too far off of what we believe. Obviously every church is, you're never going to find a church that is exactly everything the way we believe. So yeah, there was a few churches in town. Well, there's one kind of odd church on the south side of town that we knew wasn't an option, even if we loved the people there.
Why were they odd?
I've offered to meet the minister and he hasn't replied. So
why were they odd?
Well, they are the Holdemans. Maybe you've heard of them.
Yes. Okay. You offered
Yeah.
to meet the minister. He's not taking you up on it
He
quite
has
yet.
not taken me up on the offer.
Well, darn.
I know it. I might try again sometime. You never know.
You probably come with a reputation.
I do. I know that I do. And also when I offered to meet with him, it was to look at the Bible together with him, not to talk about all of my mistakes and wrongdoings.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, very good. Okay. So then now you're starting a school. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, well, let me circle back so I don't lose my train of thought with our church. So
Okay.
we have ended up with a fairly small church, which actually works really good for our children. We tried a few churches, and our children they don't do well with a lot of noise and a lot of activity and a lot of chaos. So we're in a pretty small church. There's like 2 other young families and then a bunch of seniors, and it works really well. Our kids they're comfortable there. They love all the old grandpas and grandmas, and the grandpas and grandmas love them, and yeah.
Awesome.
And it is a Mennonite church, surprisingly enough.
Okay.
It is the Mennonite Brethren.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Which I have described to people as it is the Holdemans minus the little white conference book.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the little white conference book, but okay.
The little white conference book is the one with all the rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was green.
No, that's the minister's manual. So it's the Holdemans minus the little white and the little green books.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then very familiar to you.
Yeah, pretty familiar. I mean, like same kind of like basic living. I mean, they're not wearing head coverings and they use musical instruments and they do all those things, but at the same time they value simplicity. They value, working around town and helping out the neighbor when the tree falls over and all of that good stuff, the stuff that I liked. So, and they've got their own ugly history like every other church does, but this congregation is great. So this is where we're at.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. So school, we attended we thought we'd try the public school when we came to Cimarron. We asked around town. Everyone had good things to say about the public school. So we had moved about in the middle of February. We put the children in school. In the oldest 2 were going to school. We put them in public school for the last part of the year. No complaints. They were great.
Okay.
But it's just like we were used to the children being in school, and they would have an Easter program, and they would talk about Jesus dying, and they would bring home Bible verses they were supposed to memorize, and they would come home and talk about chapel, and all of a sudden all of that was gone. So we missed that. It just didn't click. We tried, so then we thought, okay, let's try homeschooling. My wife's brother and sister-in-law here, they homeschooled as well. And so we investigated their system. We went to their homeschool co-op and we thought, well, okay, I think we can do this. Turns out we were wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we did it for the year. We said we'll try till Christmas. Around Christmas time, we looked at it and we said we can do it for the rest of the year. About halfway through that second semester, we said that this is going to have to stop. Okay. But if there isn't a Christian school around, I'm the kind of guy that we'll make one then.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're doing that. I mean, there's an organization called Renew a Nation. We can put the link in the show notes if you want to. If anyone else wants to start a school, but that's their business, is they'll kind of come alongside and coach people that are trying to start schools. And really there are a lot around the US and actually Canada too that are starting to pop up. People, they're sort of halfway between the homeschooling and like they don't like the public school, but they don't really want to do the whole homeschool thing, and so they the private Christian school is sort of the in-between option. So we're working on that. We've got 2 other families that are joining us at least, so it's still just like a micro school technically. But we're halfway between 2 small cities, both of them within driving distance. So it could really take off. If it really takes off, I'm not interested in running it. We're going to pass it off to someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got enough on my plate as it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's where we're at.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
Thank you.
You know? Yes. Yeah. I always wondered how that letter came to be. And so, yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, and that everybody just went and lived their lives. And, you know, you said you're still in contact though with each other.
Yeah, we're all pretty much still in contact with each other. I work at my computer all day, every day, and I've got the Telegram app up on one side, and it's popping all day with brethren, with questions and thoughts and grumblings and discussions and whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, we're all still in contact. Like I said, most of us. And I mean, we encourage each other. And the interesting thing is about half of us are in the church and the other half aren't, and we still encourage each other.
That is awesome.
And when we get together, it's like old friends and family. I mean, it's really neat because we started out scattered all around the continent, Canada and the US. And for the longest, like, I mean, there was some of us that knew each other face to face, but it's still ongoing. Like if I travel to Missouri, I'll text someone up and I'll say, hey, I'm in, we're traveling through. And he's like, come on down for lunch. And we sit and have lunch and just talk and reminisce and commiserate with each other. And it's great.
So it's a good friendship group.
Absolutely. A very good friendship, very good support group.
That is awesome.
And when we're tempted to, we're like a good support group. If we're angry at something, everyone's like, yeah, be angry then for a while. And then, okay, it's time to calm down now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because, that it seems like historically men have a little more of a difficulty finding their man group.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And somewhere where it's okay to be emotional.
Yes.
Yep. That's a big one. So here's a couple things I was going to talk about. One is being offended. Okay. So offended means hurt. And if you touch your finger on a hot stove and it doesn't hurt, something's wrong.
Right.
If someone is mean to you, insults you, demeans you, and it doesn't hurt, something's wrong. That means, okay, like we've worked with abused children quite a bit in our life.
Okay.
An abused child thinks this is normal to be abused. It's normal for my adults to yell at me. It's normal for my adults to hit me. Mm-hmm. And they are okay with it because this is what life is. So if someone is hurtful to you, it should hurt. It's good. It should hurt. So I am offended is a space in time. I was hurt. I was offended. Sometimes it still hurts. Sometimes I walk past someone that refuses to shake my hand and it still hurts. It always does when someone doesn't want to shake my hand.
Right.
I forgive.
Yeah.
I got offended, I got hurt, and I forgave those people. Sometimes it still hurts while I'm forgiving them. And after I've forgiven them, it still hurts.
In my active forgiveness. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to make that clear because I think a lot of people kind of wrestle with, well, should I be offended? People are telling me I'm offended. They're accusing me of being offended. What's up with that? And then I look at myself and, I mean, if I'm honest with myself, yeah, it does hurt. But what do I do with that? Well, I want to give people some vocabulary to talk about that. So, I mean, that's why I say, I mean, if anybody comes and says, I think you're offended, I'm like, you bet I am. Absolutely. And
exactly.
It's good. I mean, it's healthy and that's the sign of a healthy, normal emotional life.
Right.
That things hurt when you're disappointed.
Okay. because we were raised, with, oh, they're just offended. They're just
Yes.
offended. But that there is, yes, okay, offended means hurt, and it's okay to be hurt.
Yeah.
I think that it's used a lot in that they are resentful and holding on to that
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, as a Christian, I believe forgiveness is not only Christians, but like forgiveness just is a tremendously powerful psychological tool.
Yes.
You have to forgive. Otherwise, you're wallowing in that same pit of mud that you've got to get out of.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. There's a proverb that says, basically that, unforgiveness does more harm to the person holding it than it does to the, like the person you're pouring it out onto.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and yes, it's fun. It's, to just be loving to them, to just, show them love and kindness. I think that is so, they don't really know what to do with it, a lot of them.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I think one of the questions that I kind of saw on the notes about preparing was, what changes would you like to see in the Holdeman Church? That's an interesting question, but really, they are humans. I love them. I want the best for them, and there's a lot of someone might throw mud at me for this, but there's a lot of good in the lifestyle, the simplicity and the hard work and the modesty and the traditional values and the, all of that good stuff. I love it all.
Yeah.
So, like, I do a lot of study on all the different denominations and all the different churches, and like, one little town of Cimarron, there's like 6 churches, and why should that be? Well, everybody has a little bit of a different place where they're comfortable, and all of those churches have something a little bit different to offer to the town. I think a plain, simple people can offer something to a town, to a community, if they change some things.
Like what?
Like what? Yeah. Not making division. So the Bible says to mark those that cause division and avoid them. Causing division in the body of Christ is is a very serious sin in the Word of God. So I'm actually really good friends with the bishop in another conservative Mennonite group. They're actually more conservative than the Holdemans, but they embrace all other Christians. They say, this is the way we like to live. This is the way we think makes a healthy community. So we're going to live like this. If you don't want to live like this, you don't have to live like this. You can go do something else. But this is the way we like to live.
Yes. And
I think that's great. If you want to be non-resistant, please be non-resistant. And teach us about your non-resistant. Tell us how we can love our enemies. We want to know how to love our enemies. If you want to be simple and modest, go for it and show us and be an example of being simple and modest. But you can do that while embracing your fellow Christian.
Right.
Yeah. And which is what Paul did in the scriptures, where he talked of, the differences of churches and how there had to be differences so that the truth could rise to the top.
I think don't they take that Bible verse about being a peculiar people in a foreign land?
They certainly do. And peculiar, really, the Greek underlying Greek word there actually means special or unique, which we Christians are special and unique.
Okay.
All of us.
But
it doesn't mean strange or weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I don't know.
It's more to you now. I've said what I needed to say. So if you've got questions, bring it on.
Okay. But they're not a simple people. Right. Their lifestyle is very extravagant. In fact, I know very, in fact, I am probably thinking only of a handful of people that could actually keep up with the Mennonite lifestyle.
Yes.
Okay, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah. In fact, I can see that in town here. I mean, not only this small town, but any other small town, the Mennonites are driving the nice vehicles. They've got the nice new. They've got the nice new cars. So Mennonites in general. I'm going to go two different directions here. First of all, Muslims in the Middle East, they can't drink alcohol, so they drink tons and tons of sweet juices and eat fast food and junk food, and they get obese. Because they can't do one vice, they put all their energy into a different vice.
Okay.
Mennonites kind of do that as well, because they're restricted by a lot of things.
Right.
You know, they're not, some of them are, but, you know, they're not going on expensive vacations. Some of them definitely are.
I was going to say yes.
Some of them definitely are. But as opposed to a lot of my clients who spend every 6 months down in Puerto Vallarta or Cancun or whatever, you know, they're not doing that. Okay. They're not summering in Europe every year or whatever.
Okay.
They're not having.
I will give you that.
Yes. They're not drinking and smoking.
Right.
They're not at the casino gambling.
Okay. Right.
They're working hard.
Yes.
They're working hard, and they're teaching their children to work hard, and they're thrifty with their money, and all of that combines into having a lot of money.
Okay.
And they're not spending it on jewelry either. I'll just add that there too. And yeah, so you got to spend it on something.
Okay.
And there's a little bit of not wanting to give too much to the poor people, because then you might create the dependency among the poor people. And so I have to keep it for myself.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna buy a nice vehicle, and I'm gonna build a nice house, because those are things that I'm allowed to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can give you that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying right or wrong. Well, I am. I'm saying wrong.
Okay.
Because we should be extravagantly generous. I am not. Generosity is not one of my spiritual gifts. The deacon one time said I should give till it hurts. I said that doesn't work for me because it hurts on the first dollar. But I'm learning to be generous, and I know I should be generous.
Okay. Their clothing has changed in the last, I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
Drastically compared to what we were allowed to wear. We would have been expelled for the clothing they are allowed to wear nowadays.
Yeah. Let me see if I have any thoughts on this. There is definitely a sea change happening in the Holdeman Church. We see that happening. What we don't know is where that's going to go. There's two things happening. There's this increased freedom, which is not always a good thing. I mean, freedom is a good thing, but there's an increased ability and willingness and whatever to go out and do your own thing, which some of that means experimenting with drugs and alcohol and getting pregnant, you know, and those aren't nice.
No.
Some of it means I can wear a different dress than I used to, and that's great. That's fantastic.
Yes.
That's happening more. I mean, that always sort of happens. There's always people that push the boundaries, but that seems to be happening more and more, and other things too, technology and vehicles and even thoughts. Okay, we're seeing that. Like the men that I'm talking with, they're seeing that, and they're really on the edge of pushing that too. They're trying to encourage it wherever they can. So that's happening. However, there's a reaction against that from the leadership and from the fundamentalist part of the Holdeman Church, where there's this trying to crack down on this increased freedom.
Okay. Yep.
But I mean, we live in a world where knowledge has exploded. And like somebody said the other day, like we were just talking about the word peculiar, being a peculiar people.
Yeah.
We're now in an interested young woman when the preacher says peculiar, she can pull her phone out of her pocket and look it up and say, what does this really mean? And she can see the Greek and she can look it up and she can say, hey, look what it means. So we're in that, and then we're in this communication age where now she can share that with her friends on the other side of the country, and they can say, hey, this is interesting. I wonder what else is interesting in the Bible. And they can start looking together. And not only that, but not necessarily in the Holdeman church, but the whole society around us is encouraging free thinking and curiosity and communication and talking to each other. And I mean, I could say tons of negative things about society, but there's some positive things too.
Yep. Okay.
And
no, and I'm not saying that it's bad at all. I'm just saying that there is definitely, like, the church of today is not the church I left.
Yes.
And I think that it is good that they're progressing.
And there's a difficulty with understanding how that can happen. I mean, it's something that I see on Facebook from time to time. Now look what the youth are doing. I would have got expelled if I did that, right? Yeah. Well, also the youth in the 1970s also were doing things. We're looking at the old people in the 1970s were looking at what the youth were doing and saying, I would have got expelled for that.
Right.
Really, what the Holdeman Church is looking for is submission to the system, not technically which clothes or which hairstyle or which technology. It's more they want to just see that you're okay with going with what's happening.
So as long as I'm okay to go along with the flow,
then you're great.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's the boundary pushers that are getting in trouble, and they always have. I mean, in the Holdeman Church, anyways, in society at large too, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess, so really, I think you covered it mostly when you said, you know, the vices, that they don't get this vice or that vice, so they have this other vice. But I mean, they're the most going people I've ever met. They were exhausting. I moved, I'd been out of the church for, years.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see, like 11 years.
Yeah.
And I moved in with my sister and her family, and they were Mennonites and stuff. And I was exhausted. These people had a social life I could not keep up with, which thankfully I didn't need to keep up with it. I could stay at home on the couch, but I was like, I asked my now husband, I'm like, what are they running from? So it's exhausting. I mean, when do they ever have time to stop and to, you know, that simplicity lifestyle, I do not think is quite there yet anymore.
No, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. It's a ton of busy. And go ahead.
Well, go on.
Yeah. So, and this is what I've seen now at worshiping with other Christians is there's a relaxedness about how other people are that they don't have, and they're not uptight about things. And that really goes into, I wasn't thinking as much about, you know, just your busy lifestyle as much as, I was just discussing with another brother today about, you know, once saved, always saved, or eternal security, or eternal insecurity, or like, where are we at with all of this? And really the conclusion was that if you're always uptight about whether you're saved or not, then you're always going to be uptight. You're kind of on this slippery slope, and you don't know if maybe you're saved, or maybe you've drifted a little too far down the slope and now you're not saved anymore, but you're deceived, and so you don't know that you're not saved.
Where's the enjoyment in being saved?
Or you can just be like, well, and like I tell people, I mean, I told this to a Holdeman minister not too long ago. I said, what would your son have to do for you to say he's no longer my son? And he had to think about that a lot, and he couldn't come up with anything. I'm like, so that's like, my boy, he's adopted, and he has no doubt in his mind that I'm his father. Why? Because when he cries in the night with a nightmare, I'm the one that shows up.
Right.
when there's, when he's hungry, I'm the one with food, or, me and my mom are the ones that feed him and clothe him and hold him when he cries and hold him when he's angry and put him in timeout when he messes up. And like he knows when he's the most angry at me, he's still my son, and he knows it. He knows he's my son. And that's how I feel with God. That's how every Christian should feel with God. I'm his child. And I can be angry and I can throw tantrums and I can kick the chairs over and yell at him. And he just holds me tighter. He just, carry on, have your tantrum. I'm still here. I can handle it.
Yes, I have one of those. She's 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. So I think the being busy is sort of connected with that uptightness.
Okay.
You're not relaxed and you're kind of uptight and you feel like you have to be doing. Yeah.
Well, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, is there anything else you would like to leave us with?
Nothing else that I can think of. I'm always here if you want to, if you have like something specific. So I'm a scholar. I'll admit it. So if you guys have like a history topic or a theology topic or whatever,
or if we ever put together a talk with a theologian, you wouldn't mind joining and coming on to have a discussion?
Absolutely. I would love that. Yeah.
We have one in our back pocket. Michael, here's a shout out to you.
Nice.
So okay, so I would love that. Just having a discussion.
Yeah.
So okay, wonderful. Well, Dennis, I absolutely appreciate you giving me your afternoon, and I have enjoyed this talk. And if there's anybody else that would like to come on and tell their story, please reach out to us. We'd love that. So once again, Dennis, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. It is an honor to connect with our guests, and we wish the best for them as well as our listeners. Remember to like and subscribe for more episodes. Our People can be found on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. If you are interested in sharing your story, please contact us at OurPeoplePodcastTeam@gmail.com. Thank you.